Hello, nerds. We are here for another mini batch of reactions. Starting off this batch, we are going to be doing the new Metallica song. This is kind of the impetus for me doing this batch because I know it's going to be very hard for me to avoid this one. The other song we're going to be doing that you should probably be looking out for if you like the Nerd Reacts series, then we will be back shortly with Rammstein's new Adieu. Though, today we're talking Metallica, Lux Æterna. We've got a couple of things to get out of the way, so without any ado... So Lux Æterna just dropped. This is also the announcement of Metallica's next record, which is going to be called 72 Seasons. This is the most recent record. I have it pulled up, I think. I thought I did. Yeah, right here. So, most recent record, the last record came out was Hardwired to Self-Destruct. I'm not going to BS you about that one at all. I was not a fan of Hardwired to Self-Destruct. I felt like, well, we'll get into that with expectations and stuff. But yeah, did not like the last record, so don't have high hopes for this record. This song released just this week, within the last week of me filming this. So, yeah. I think that's what we got. Before we get into expectations and my history with the band and stuff, we got one more pre-recorded segment.
Well, hello there, nerds. Thank you very much for joining me for this reaction video. We have a couple of things to get out of the way before we can get back to said video. First and foremost, I do reactions as more of a initial analysis. So we're going to be stopping this. We're going to be talking over certain things. We're going to be replaying sections. We're going to be doing a lot of things that are not conducive to somebody who just wants to watch the original content. If you would rather watch the original content uninterrupted, then please go do that. I definitely would recommend that before you join me here on this reaction and analysis. Beyond that, I have to get my qualifications out of the way. I have been training in music since I was a little kid, which means approximately 30 years. I have been a professional musician and studio producer for about 20 of those 30 years. I have also been making, directing, and editing music videos and YouTube content for over a decade at this point. So I have a base of knowledge that lends itself to adding something constructive to this conversation. And that is exactly what this is. This is a conversation. This is my interpretation of what we're about to react to and analyze. If you have a different interpretation, that's what the comment section is for. Let's have a conversation about this thing, about why it may or may not be the greatest thing ever, whatever it is. I welcome the comments. I do request, though, that you try and be constructive with your criticism, or you at least have some sort of knowledge base to work from, because gotcha moments are not going to work in this comment section. I do have a pretty strong knowledge base and a pretty strong opinion most of the time. So, all of that being said, thank you very much for joining me right now, and let's get back to your regularly scheduled reaction video.
All right. So, like I said, we have segments because I do my reaction videos a little bit differently. So, first segment is my history with the band. All right, so I've been a metalhead as long as I can remember. The first band that I was really into was GNR. Didn't really get into Metallica. It's a weird way to put that. I feel like most people they don't really do it that way, but didn't really get into Metallica until like as a freshman in high school, because I had buddies who were really into Metallica and we started a band together. So, I learned some riffs. They showed me the song One and I went, oh, that's what metal can be, and not just high vocals and cool guitar riffs, but speed and power and yeah, a lot of the different elements of Metallica, and then that kind of really got me into a lot of other aspects of the genre. So, while there was a brief moment in time where I do owe Metallica opening up a lot of doors for me, I was never a big Metallica head. I feel like I honestly like some of the records that the hardcore Metallica fans don't like as much. I like the Load record. I like the Reload record. The Black Album, I dig. Death Magnetic, I think, was an underrated gem. Like, I think that is a very essential modern thrash album. And a lot of hardcore Metallica fans don't really listen to those records because anything after Cliff is kind of hit and miss. And anything after the Black Album is pretty much out the door. So, yeah, it's different. That being said, I have seen Metallica live just the once. It was Summer Sanitarium. The openers it was the year Linkin Park and Limp Bizkit were both on it. I think Deftones opened up the show, which is a really weird order of things. It went Deftones, Linkin Park, Limp Bizkit, Metallica. It was a stadium show, and we had stadium seats, so we were way in the hell in the back, and binoculars and the whole nine. So while I've seen them live, it's not to say I've seen them live. Maybe Mudvayne was there that year. I can't remember which one it was. Either way, I enjoyed it nonetheless because I know Limp Bizkit was there, and I'm 90% sure it was Deftones. I just can't remember who was in the middle, if it was Mudvayne or if it was Linkin Park. Either way, I liked it. They're all bands that I loved, and it was my first time seeing both Metallica and Limp Bizkit, who I was a big fan of both those bands. So, yeah, that's about as much adoration as I can give the band. Is round about the time that they were doing that. That's about my peak of interest with them. And then Death Magnetic kind of reinvigorated that, and then the record after that, the Hardwired to Self-Destruct record, was all right, so let's get into this real quick. I disliked that record a lot. I know that a lot of the more thrash-oriented fans have an appreciation for it, though I don't think they're being as honest as I think they should be. Because the vocals on that record really sound like James is just not there. The delivery vocally is just half-assed. There's no two ways about that. So that was the thing that really killed that record. I mean, performance-wise, it was fine. Obviously, production-wise, it was stellar because they're the biggest band in the world, so why wouldn't it be great? And then you look at Saint Anger and go, oh yeah, they do make mistakes sometimes. So, I mean, like, I'm well-versed in Metallica music. I don't care about what the fans necessarily think, so if I get certain things wrong about the fandom, excuse me, but as it stands, I'm familiar with the music. The history of the band is well documented at this point. We're not going to get into it because that would be a whole video unto itself, though usually that is where we go next with my reaction videos. So my history with the band, the history of the band out of the way, let's talk about expectations for this song and video. So, I did scroll through some thumbnails before starting filming for this, so I do know that some of the imagery resembles the Stranger Things scene with which their song was featured rather heavily. So that I have as at least one expectation is going to be some Stranger Things vibes visually. As far as the audio goes, I expect this to be a better vocal performance from James Hetfield because I think there was a lot of extracurricular issues, if you will, going around the development and the production of Hardwired. I think that some of that stuff has been reined in. James has dealt with some of those demons, and so hopefully he can focus on producing quality music, of doing a quality performance in the studio. So that's one expectation. I also expect this. as much as I am a Midland kind of Metallica fan, I, for the longest time, did not have a whole lot of respect for the Megadeth split. Dave Mustaine, I felt like, was a big whiny baby and made subpar music when compared to Metallica albums. I know that's divisive point of view, but again, I don't really care. So with the newest Megadeth record, though, that kind of switched, because the Sick, the Dying, and the Dead is a really good record. Like, really good. Like, this is a band that's been around since technically the 70s in a way, because Mustaine was in Metallica in like 79, I believe, is when that happened, and they kicked him out in like 81, if I remember correctly. So Mustaine's been making music since the 70s, I guess, is probably the more appropriate way to put that. Megadeth formed shortly after he was kicked out of Metallica, and that has been the thing since for Dave Mustaine. And I just felt like Dave Mustaine forever was just like, oh yeah, well, I was in Metallica once. Like, that's kind of his essence for a long, long time. And with the Sick, the Dying, and the Dead, I think that is the first time I remember listening to a Megadeth record and going, this is good. This is like there's no stigma behind this playing. This is just Dave going, I am still a shred master, even though I'm a grandpa multiple times over. And there's still a lot of urgency in that record. It still feels like there's a lot of edge in his voice. There's a lot of edge in those performances. And I feel like that blew the Metallica Hardwired to Self-Destruct record out of the water. Just completely demolished the performance on that Metallica record. So I think this will be Metallica's response to that. And now I think it's a healthy back and forth between these two bands. So maybe we'll see some sort of, I don't know about recognition, but maybe we'll see some sort of healthy back and forth, to repeat myself. I don't know how much of an expectation that is, though. Like, will this be better than anything we heard off of The Sick, Dying, and the Dead? I can't say that's an expectation. That's a pretty high bar, because that record, I think, is pretty rare and unique. So I think that about covers expectations. And with all of that done, let's do the thing. Let's get into the reaction. Starting this bad boy up. All right, so right off the bat, we can already see that the production value is better than Saint Anger. So that's something. That is a lot more like a rock and roll kind of riff. Like it's sped up a little bit, so I feel like we're borderline between that hard rock and thrash kind of threshold. But I dig it. I think this is an interesting evolution for Metallica. I'm not gonna lie. I also really like, you can hear Robert in this. Robert Trujillo definitely is a fair example of rock bass syndrome, something we talk about a lot in these reaction videos. Robert Trujillo definitely falls into that trapping a lot because he's a good metal bass player. He's actually a really good bass player, but for whatever reason, it's kind of few and far between where we get to see him stretch those legs. He generally is just perfunctory, and he plays a lot of root notes. So, but as far as the production goes, as far as the EQ goes, you do get bottom end on here. I'm hearing Robert already, and the song effectively just started. Well then. All right. That was leaps and bounds above anything we got off of Hardwired to Self-Destruct. That verse in and of itself is already putting the entire record of Hardwired to shame. That was fantastic. Better than the Megadeth record? Vocally, maybe. So far, instrumentally, not as impressive, but solid. Either way, super, super solid. I dig it. This almost feels like James circa... I want to say like Master almost. Like that's almost the amount of emotion I'm getting from James's voice. Like that's genuinely exciting. That's pretty awesome. All right. Also sounds like they went back to a standard tuning. I know for Sane Anger, they were experimenting with alternative tunings. I think there was drop B there for a few of those songs. I'm fairly sure with Death Magnetic, it was more standard and drop D tune. This very much sounds standard all the way through. So maybe they're just sticking with what they know best and not trying to adhere to trends, which is nice. Just the production on this is honestly so much better than anything I heard on the Hardwired record. I'm just riding high on that right now.
Full speed or nothing. Full speed or nothing. Lux Æterna.
All right, and I can kind of see what the again. I only saw a thumbnail and a video title, so. This is that person, whoever had that in their thumbnail, obviously is not well versed with Metallica, because so far this is just a regular James performance and very creative photography. That being said, I want to go back to that really cool shot that was happening as I paused this. We're gonna go back a couple of seconds because I really dig this visual. Like the set that they're on is really uninteresting, but what they're doing with the camera, I think, is super interesting. So we'll start here. All right, the mouse is visible. Okay, so right here, what we've got going on effectively, let's see if we can see where the seam is. Yes, we can. All right, so you have the main shot. Looks like the seam for that is right about here to here. Yeah, you can see right there where his coat starts to ripple in weird ways. So that's the upper seam, that's the lower seam. So effectively what they've done is they've taken the shot and only kept this area right here clear. All of this is untouched, but you have superimposed, it looks like at least 2 more times. We can see there's one main time, and it looks like just a different overlay for the edit. But you've got it's a really cool, really simple effect. You're like screen, the effective, as I lose it. You can even see it better, a little bit better here. The director is got this as a screen overlay. Maybe I would have to like be in Premiere to get this 100% right. But so what it looks like is the main shot is behind, and then there's 3 effective layers that we're working with. The bottommost layer is this blurred shot. The middle layer is the straight shot that you can see here in the center. And then the top layer is, again, the same blurred shot over again. The reason I say it's there twice is because this right here, from approximately this seam, you can see where the light cuts. From that seam down would be darker in tone, because that is where the frame ends for the main video, right? So since that's the case and it's not a darker color, it's the same color, you have at least two layers of an overlay. You have a solid layer, and then you have an overlay layer. The overlay is what's phantoming over the top of the main image, which is what's creating that really cool effect. And then as we let this shot progress, we get to the part that got me talking about visuals. Right there. That's almost reminiscent of one of their videos, the la da 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 remains the same. What the whatever. But this, you're taking that to an extreme, and then you're on top of your overlay layer, you have an effect, and it looks like they're moving the effect down so that it completely blurs him out. And it's just super cool looking. I just like that right there would be a really awesome like wallpaper. That's just a really cool shot. I'm sorry. Oh, I don't know about this. Kurt is such a better guitar player than that. All right, so that was a mess. What? Kirk Hammett is 10 times the guitar player than what he just expressed with that guitar solo. I mean, solos are an expression of raw emotion, right? There's something to be improvised at time. Usually, I mean, there are people like Bill Kelleher, who write out their solos, which is weird to me. But either way, like it is something that is set apart to at its most basic element to emphasize the ability of the lead guitar player, whoever the guitar player is that's playing the part. What was that? You have a lot of like left hand slides, single string slides. You have a lot of cascading like triplets going down, but like he's done all of the elements that he's done all of the elements that he showed us in that solo so much better in other solos that I feel like that was kind of thrown together by comparison. Super underwhelming, Kirk. I don't know how I feel about that. That kind of leaves a weird taste in my mouth. I think a lot of the betterness of James's vocal performance is it sounds like he's actually singing, whereas a lot of the hardwired stuff it sounded like he was, I don't know, like more speaking the lyrics. I don't know, just the delivery is so much more musical. I think that's the big thing. It seems to be the direction that they went is, let's try and make this a little bit more musical than the last one, because the last one we were going through some stuff. also feels like they've changed some of the effects on the guitars. Like the tone sounds different than it has for a while. Like it's a little more. I wonder who directed by Tim Sakenti. I wonder who. Let's go look up real quick because I'm very curious who the producer is on this record. Producer Greg Feldman, James Hetfield, and Lars Ulrich. All right, so who was a producer on Hardwired? Greg Feldman, okay. And then, oh, come on, where's Death Magnetic? Not Lulu. Ugh. Death Magnetic. Death Magnetic producer was Rick Rubin. That makes a lot of sense. Saint Anger was Bob Rock, and that one, bleh. Garage was also some great tone, and that was Bob Rock again. Huh, interesting. So whoever this Feldman character is, he's done good things for their guitar sound. Anyway, takeaways from this. I dig it. I think it's not exactly what I was hoping for. It's not exactly it's not, I wouldn't put it at the same level as Death Magnetic necessarily. It is, I mean, this is only one song from the album. I've listened to the Death Magnetic album quite a few times at this point. And even that, as much as I appreciate that record, it still doesn't touch the OG Metallica records, right? So yes, this is the Lux Æterna is a rockin' song. It is definitely one that you should go listen to if you haven't already. I mean, we just did the reaction, so you heard it. You just heard it in bits and pieces while we were talking about it. I dig it. You should dig it. I'm kind of excited about the next Metallica record now. I'm not gonna lie. This is doing a lot for me. So, all of that being said, thank you very much for sticking around, nerds. We are going to be trying to do these a little bit more regularly. I know I say that every year around about this time when we crank out a batch of these, but I'm working it into the schedule more often, I think is the appropriate way of putting that. But I appreciate you guys sticking around. There is more stuff on the channel. You can go check it out, or you can go check out, whatever video is popping up on the screen right now. I appreciate you. We'll see you in the next one. Before we go, always remember that if it's generally nerdy, it's probably here.